Hey everyone, good evening. Welcome to
Yeah,
our last segment of Bama Bugfest on the web, right, James?
that's right. Yeah, I want to welcome everyone to our final daily wrap up
Hmm.
and Q&A for Bama Bug Fest on the web for the Bug Benefits Day, which was today on July 25th. We've been collecting all of your questions and comments about the event contents throughout the day, and we'll be asking our panel of experts to help us answer as many as we can. Today, we're joined this evening by Dr. Marcy Koontz, associate professor, clothing, textiles, and interior design with the College of Human Environmental Services and curator of the Fashion Archives. Along with her, we have Dr. John Friel, director of the Alabama Museum of Natural History, and Allie Sorlie, who is the education outreach coordinator at the Alabama Museum of Natural History as well. And my name is James Scott, and I am the education assistant at the Mildred Westervelt Warner Transportation Museum.
We
Um,
all have so many words in our
we've
titles and
got lots of
organizations.
words all over the place. So many titles, great titles. Um, so you might recognize some of these guys from earlier programs throughout the day, also from earlier this week. They've been kind enough to agree to come back this evening for our final Q&A session. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for helping us with the events today. How do you guys think everything went?
It was
Yeah,
great.
Yeah,
I
it was a
enjoyed
lot of
everything.
fun. Today was a fun day.
Yes, it was. I enjoyed learning about crickets in chocolate chip cookies, and I learned that at the Arboretum they have a mulch pile or a compost pile that's to envy, right?
Yes, it's huge, and there's several of them. We'll have to maybe one day
Really?
when it's all safe to go back to the Arboretum, Marcy. I can introduce you to Monica, and we can go visit the compost piles.
Allie,
Yes.
did they get some of the food waste from UA
They
dining and
do,
things like
yeah.
that? I
That
remember one day
whole
being there and they were delivering a big truckload of extra, surplus vegetable parts and things that had gone bad, and we're adding that to the mulch pile.
yeah, she talks about it a little bit in the video, but I had this awful like issue with my microphone. It made me real sad around that time. But so they have a compost program where they get food scraps from all of the Bama the dining halls, and the food scraps are brought to the arboretum for compost. But then they also get all the leaves from the quad, and the leaves from the
Oh,
quad are they call them the browns, but it's like the leaf matter that assists with the composting process. So everything that they use to compost for their community garden, which in turn, everything that comes out of the community garden gets donated to the food banks here in town. All the produce that's it's done comes from UA's campus, which is like they were the perfect people to talk about composting because it's such a great program. And I think it's not one that we know very much about, or a lot of people know very much about. So I'm glad that we had a chance to, bring the arbor or to talk a little bit about it and talk about some of the great work that the arboretum does. Um, but we did, one of the things that I really enjoyed uh, watching today was Marcy. Marcy, your video was incredible. So it was. I feel like I've always heard about these things happening before, but I have never seen those processes before. Now, when you were like creating and researching and editing this video,
Mhm.
were you familiar with? I'm gonna say that I'm always wanting to say Coachella insects, but they are not Coachella insects. They are cochineal insects.
Yes, they are. That's okay. They party.
Yeah, they do.
Uh,
But were you familiar with the cochineal insects and
yeah,
the lac insects before?
well, of course, the cochineal I was aware of.
Mm.
But when I decided to take the route of red dye and insects, I'll be honest, I had to search for another insect that actually produced red dye.
Yeah,
And that's where I learned about the lac insect.
and that
And
yeah.
there is not a whole lot of information out there. And the limited information about lac insects is in a different language
Yeah, I
and
noticed
all
that.
the videos and things. And so I actually had to contact the group in Thailand that is engaged in economic insects, insects for economic purposes.
Yeah,
And they don't speak English. So I had to communicate with them in their language. So when I got their email confirming I could use their video, footage, I was like, wait, is this yes or no? You know, so that was sort of interesting. But you know, one of the as an educator, one of the things that I thought was very interesting is that would be a great project for a graduate student is to really document the lac beetle, or I want to call it a beetle. It's not. It's an insect. That the lac insect, because globally there isn't really good information about it. It goes through all of these different stages, and of course, I'm not a bug person. I'm not a bug expert, but it goes through all of these different stages. So when I was actually creating those drawings of the bugs. Now, I know I took artistic license. All through Bug Fest, I've learned about being correct in how you illustrate a bug. Please, the scientists want it to be exact. It's not exact in the cartoon world, and so that was my artistic expression of bugs. But I had to draw that like insect many times, because the more I delved into it, other people would say it looked like this or that, or you know, it morphed into this, and I'm like, what does this bug look like? So I just drew it like the crawling one in the video. So
that is something new that I didn't realize, that those were original Marcy Koontz
yes
art pieces. Yes, that video extra special. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And yeah, I did notice that the lac ones were from Cambodia and Thailand, I think, or Thailand for sure, but I thought maybe I saw Cambodia.
Cambodia is where the dyeing took place.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes, and that actually is an institute that preserves that heritage.
Yeah.
And it's a, you know, in English, so people can actually go and read up on it.
Now, I think that you were talking a little bit before we got on this about, do you have something that's lac insect related with you right now?
Oh, yes, I do. I've got some actual lac dye. I'm going to hold it up here.
Oh, wow.
I hope I don't spill it on my laptop. You see that?
Yeah.
So that's actual lac dye. And so when we say lac, think about shellac. All of you know shellac, right? That's where shellac comes from. So anything that's made with shellac is lac insect.
It's insect based.
Mm-hmm. And so what they do is the insects. Now, Dr. Friel, I'm not an expert, so I'm going to give this in layman's terms. The insect secretes this goo. And
a good word.
The goo covers them on a tree branch, to protect them from enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And so they live sort of underneath this goo on this tree branch, but then it hardens around them. And so it's that hardened stuff that gets pounded and liquefied. So if you use hairspray that's shiny, it has shellac in there. So there's all kinds of cool things. Yeah.
And I wonder if that has something to do with nail polish too, like.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh,
sure enough.
So yes, but this probably also has to do with the cochineal.
So the cochineal one was interesting too, and I thought it was. Do you have that? Oh, in lipstick too?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that the
cochineal?
Cochineal. I almost said Coachella again. I will never not say Coachella. I don't know why.
Yeah, you're going to make me start saying it.
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you need to say it. Yes. And also to sort of tie in with Kendra's video this morning, the cricket video, I can show you some ways that you have been eating cochineal and been eating the lac insect. So in her video, she talked about people easing into eating specifically crickets, but probably people don't realize they're already initiated into the insect eating world. So let me show you a couple, okay? So I'm going to show you something that you have probably eaten that has both the cochineal and the lac insect in them. Y'all ready?
2 for 1.
Y'all
Huh?
ready?
Ready.
No, and plenties.
Yeah.
No way.
Sure enough.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, yeah.
Seen those before? So these
Yeah.
two things have both insects. Got it? Okay, these little treats that I know you've all have the cochineal.
No. Yep.
Whoa. Insects
Okay,
are
now
delicious.
now we're yes, they are very tasty. Now we're just going to rapid fire through lac insect
Okay.
because that's going to be more prominent in candies.
No, is that Boston
Boston
baked beans?
baked beans.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Look at that.
Oh, red hots.
I
Yeah.
love red hots.
Those.
Wow,
Those are my
that one's
favorite.
Okay,
surprising.
see
I
how
wouldn't expect
shiny?
that
No,
one.
look how shiny they are.
Yeah.
Do you see? And so guess what? Shellac, right?
Guess what? Bugs.
And you know the coating on these is really shiny.
Oh
Mhm.
my gosh.
Hot tamales.
Oh, yeah.
Now I feel like I need to look at the ingredients. Oh no,
Yeah.
junior mints are my weakness. Oh goodness.
Oh yeah.
I
Okay,
just had
now
junior
this
mints
one.
the other day.
Look at this.
No way.
Dilly
Dilly
bellies.
bellies.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's probably the shininess again.
Mm-hmm.
Goobers.
Goobers, really?
Yeah.
Ah.
How much candy did you buy today?
Really, what I did was I just went to Walgreens and started looking at the ingredient list.
What did you see on the ingredient list that told you that it had those bugs in them?
Because it says so. It says confectioner's glaze. So any candy that has confectioner's glaze on it is the lac insect.
Whoa.
And
Really-
if you want to look for the cochineal, it actually has cochineal.
Like that word is on it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, wow.
And that's the last one.
Whoa. I feel like this is one of those moments where you remember those commercials, there was like the more you know, and it had the star.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
I feel like we
Yes.
just entered into a really big the more you know.
The more,
rating
yeah.
star. Yeah.
Yeah. But what's interesting is, of course, PETA has gone after like Nestle and some of the big candy makers.
Yeah.
And so they have actually found alternatives to using those two insects in their candies to make it, environmentally friendly and friends to the animals. And so if you are actually a vegan, you shouldn't be eating those.
Oh wow, that's so interesting.
Mhm. Yeah.
I do know some vegans choose not to have any honey-based products either that are bee related. So this would be along that line as well.
I mean, the
Yeah,
joke is
yeah.
here that even if you're vegan, you're eating bugs. If
Yeah.
you eat any kind of process, I mean, every food product you buy commercially has an allowed percentage of insect parts and other kind of things that you wouldn't eat. So, I mean, I've seen these statistics over your lifetime. All of us eats pounds and pounds of insects. It's just we don't perceive it. So you can't.
But these are actually on the labels.
Yeah, those are.
You see,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
that's what's interesting about those is that once you know something, right, and you go in and start looking at it. So if it says confectioner's glaze, that's what you're looking for. That's going to be the lac insect. But then again, if it's red, it'll say carminic acid or carminic for the cochineal.
Oh yeah, that's that man that was in Mexico mentioned that. In
Yes,
the video
yes, he did.
The cactus, the cochineal, I guess, farmer.
Yes,
mentioned that.
yes.
That is, and that whole process too was really fascinating. The way that they, cut off a piece of the cactus and had them, and it was like they were all covered in cocoons, and they just brushed them off, and that was fascinating.
Sure.
But
now the interesting thing is, and this is on the little reference list that y'all put on the Facebook page. I put all the books so if people are interested, because this is actually a book on that list. And there's a lot of intrigue with the cochineal insect because Spain invaded Mexico in the 15th century.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did, that's when Spain discovered cochineal and
Oh.
all of its
It was
possibilities. And so there's lots of mystery and intrigue and war and all of this associated with. So there's some really good books about it.
Yeah.
Because it was so valuable. That dye stuff was a very valuable thing.
They didn't come just for gold. They came
No, well, actually, that cochineal dye was better than gold,
yeah.
as it turned out. Yes.
Wow.
And we associate that red with royalty. Even the British redcoats.
Yeah.
The cochineal. Yeah. So when you look through Europe and you see that red dye, it was the royal people, the high society people. So there was a lot of money in that dye.
Now, another thing I thought was really interesting was the examples that you included in your video, and those examples are from the Fashion Archive.
Yes, they are.
Right on
Yes,
campus,
yes.
right? That's what you work with every day. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The Comer collection. So the Comer collection, and I'm not sure which Comer, but it was the Comer family. So that's buildings are named after the Comer family on our campus, and it's a prominent family from Birmingham. In the 1940s, Mr. Comer, I'm sorry, I can't remember his first name, but so we'll just say Mr. Comer, was meeting with the dean of the College of Human Environmental Sciences and Henrietta Thompson. And it was at that meeting where he mentioned that Gordon Palmer owed him some money, and he was going to get that money from Gordon Palmer and give it to Henrietta Thompson to better establish the historic costume collection. That's what it was called at the time. She started the collection in the 1930s, more as a study collection for students to use. And so with that donation, it became a formal, recognized collection, like a museum collection.
Yeah.
And with money from Mr. Comer, they purchased the Comer collection textiles from the Metropolitan Museum in the 1940s. And so those samples that you saw, those textile fragments from the 15th through the 18th century are from that Comer collection. So it's a very valuable collection. Yes.
And they were beautiful fabrics.
Yes, they are.
Too.
Yes.
I mean, some really beautiful and ornate designs, and the color. I mean, it surprises me that for the age that they are, that redness, that color. I mean, obviously, it's a testament to people taking care of them, but that color survived.
Yeah, and also when you turn them over, because of course when they've been exposed to light, so they've faded. So, but when you turn them over, you can still see the brilliance of the color.
Wow.
But there's another book that I'll show real quick. This beautiful book, and it's a red like no other.
Oh, wow.
And so the examples that they have in here are comparable to what we actually have in our collection. So I was, it's
great.
Very impressive. And then there's also this other little book I want to show you for the young people out there, The Colors of History. And they have a great, this is a really well illustrated book. So can y'all see the cochineal?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is about all the important colors in the world, but cochineal is one of them. The cochineal red.
So I do want to mention, because you have mentioned it a couple of times, that these books are linked on the resource guide, and everyone can find them at bamabugfest.org.
Yes, they can. And there's actually one of the books on here, cochineal red, the art history of a color. You can actually read this online, and that's linked.
Okay.
So you don't have to buy it. You can actually read it online. Let me get it straight. Okay.
Huh.
Now, did you say you also, I think I heard you mention you had a cocoon with you?
Yes, I do. I have a
That real quick
cocoon.
before we...
Yes. Can you see that? Okay,
yeah.
now listen very quietly. Can you hear it? Can y'all hear
Yeah.
it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the little, what do you call this thing in here?
That'd be the pupa would be inside of it. So the caterpillar, it's a silk caterpillar. So when it pupates, and then it covers the normal pupa. It spins this silken capsule around it. So what's rattling inside is what would look like if you opened up, you'd find something that looked like an insect pupa.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's a buggy insect or a buggy Easter egg.
but it's hard. So it's not soft.
Yeah.
It's hard.
That's
So
really
what
cool.
happens is in my world, so you want to turn that into fiber, right? So you degum those. Those are sticky. And so you put them in a boiling water. And so this is an example of degummed cocoons.
Whoa.
And so it's from this that you get, and this is hand spun mulberry silk from Thailand.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Oh, look at those individual strands.
Yes.
They're gorgeous. They're so fine.
Beautiful? Yes, and it's so soft.
Oh,
One interesting thing in sericulture is the silkworm eats mulberry leaves.
Mm-hmm. It only eats mulberry. That's the problem.
Well, that is the problem because there's a shortage at the moment. And so they're trying to find alternative food sources for the silkworm.
Wow.
It's a situation. Yes, a real situation.
Is that something that the silkworms are adapting to very well, or are they kind of like, no, I don't want to eat that
They've been eating mulberry leaves for thousands of years.
Tens of millions of years.
Probably. And nobody knows exactly why. Some people say because it smells like a jasmine, but nobody can figure out really why it's.
Yeah, it's not uncommon in most moths and butterflies. Many of them have a particular plant that they will only eat. You know, I love Gulf fritillary butterflies, and they only eat Passiflora passion flower.
Oh, wow.
It's the only thing they'll eat. I mean, it depends on the species. Some species will eat a variety of plants, but there are some which there's only a single host plant, and they're really specific. So that's really common. And it just happens that I suspect basically the silk moth has been domesticated. It's actually a domesticated insect. So there are wild individuals still, but they really have selected it for silk production. And there are a few features that are different about it, but its preference for mulberries, that's a hard thing. That's hardwired into their DNA. So it's a real challenge. I've raised silkworms for food for lizards. You can buy them. You can actually sell them in pet stores, and you can buy if you don't have a mulberry tree, you have to buy basically dried mulberry powder and reconstitute it because it's the only thing that they'll eat. And I've tried, other things, and I discovered quite quickly, if you don't have a mulberry tree, it's really hard to raise them because they eat. You saw that video; it was time lapse, but you see how the quantities of mulberry leaves they were eating in those farms.
Yeah.
And basically, to have a silkworm farm, you have to have a mulberry farm to produce. And they probably go through tons of fresh mulberry leaves every day. And, it takes a while for those trees to regenerate those leaves, but it's quite the operation.
No, I think I want to thank you again for putting that video together because I think it's something that I feel like, maybe we've all heard about here and there, but hadn't really had an opportunity to see it. Yeah. And those clips were incredible. So thank you for doing all that. I do want to promote you guys on the Fashion Archive because you have an incredible Instagram account. Is it okay if I share with everyone that Instagram account?
Oh, please. Sure.
So everyone, did I spell it right? I think I got it all right. But if you guys will follow the Fashion Archive _UA on Instagram, they have, if you enjoyed some of those examples, but the textiles and you are interested in textiles, this is the Instagram account for you. They have beautiful clothing pieces that they put up on, and maybe, why am I talking about it? Marcy, do you want to talk a little bit?
No, go right ahead. I'm enjoying it because see, that is good for me to hear you talk about it because that's time intensive. All social media takes a lot of my time, and so I'm glad to hear you talk about it. It's
one of
appreciated. It has a function. You know, it's not just for fun. It's outreach. And so,
right.
no, I thank you for speaking so highly of it.
Yeah, I mean, the photographs that are taken are beautiful and clear, and they have this great description, so you can understand the garment that you're looking at, and learn a little bit more about it. And I don't know, there's just incredible work that's done. This is one of the ones on my Instagram feed that I like look forward to all the time. So I wanted to make sure everybody, you know, had a chance to see this. But please follow this on Insta because it's incredible and wonderful. But yeah, I think that was I really sorry, I keep knocking my table. Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I just loved seeing that silkworm farm and like all the little boxes, you know, like that little thing that they were in, the rack, I guess, that they were in, that they were all cocooning in, and I don't know, it was fascinating. I gotta stop hitting this table.
Well, I have to thank a colleague of mine, Michelle Tong, for helping me secure that video, because that was very difficult to do. Believe me, it was very difficult. And so she at midnight actually called Hong Kong for me to get permission from that company, because I was not having any luck. Through emails, through faxes, I faxed. And so she actually at midnight one night got on the phone and called Hong Kong for me. So shout out to Dr. Tong.
Thank you, Dr. Tong.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, because that video was perfect. And so what I wanted to do was tell a story of two bugs, right? The die of two bugs. And to me, you needed the fiber, right, for them to die. And so I'm very thankful.
That's wonderful. So do you have any, like, was there any interesting things or any parting thoughts you have on your video? Any interesting things that you learned? Anything you want to share with anyone?
Well, I do, but it's not really about that video. What it's about is the Bama Bug Fest in general. And yes, because I have to say that the Fashion Archive is located on the 3rd floor of Mary Harmon Bryant Hall. So I'm surrounded by the museum collections. I'm surrounded by bug people and fish people and rock people, and everyone has welcomed me. And I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to participate. You know, not everybody would think the Fashion Archive should be in Bug Fest. So I appreciate the opportunity for the Fashion Archive to be included.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't thank you enough. I mean, actually, we had this really great comment that came that I think that you'll love, that this has been an excellent interdisciplinary program. And it has, because insects are that content area that really just reaches out into every aspect of our world. You know, you can't not have an insect involved in your life, and even on the clothes on your back, which is great.
Or the food, or the candy, or the candy, or the cookies.
The cookies that you eat.
Yeah, I hope that, I know that I do. I speak for all of us when we say thank you for putting all that time and research and effort into securing those great video clips from across the world.
Yeah, 7 different countries. 7 different countries are in that video.
That's incredible.
And I will have to say that Tomas Ramirez from Oaxaca, Mexico, was so thankful. He was so thankful for the video to be included.
Well, thank you to him for making it.
Yes. Yes, it was a global effort.
Yeah, we appreciate everything. I mean, and you've not just Bugfest, you've helped out the museum personally in lots of different ways. We always I feel like the Fashion Archive always has stuff in it that you wouldn't expect that it would have in it, which is another reason why I love your Instagram account, because you get to learn a lot more about the collection. And like you said, it's outreach. We get to learn about things that are, you know, behind closed doors most of the time.
Exactly.
But this was another example of just how extensive the archive collection is and how surprising I feel like the archive collection, the fashion archive is. So.
Well, but that, in museums, that's our role, right?
Yep.
Our role is to make connections.
Absolutely.
As odd as they may seem, it's to make those connections.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're lucky to have you as a collections neighbor.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope folks learn something about cochineal and lac insects.
Yes, cochineal, not Coachella.
And silkworm.
One takeaway for today.
Yes.
Again, one of my, the idea about this is I come from the biology, but the science side of things. But I realize many people aren't into the science of bugs. Some people are, like the Abbotts, myself included. But the idea that bugs really touch so many things in our life. We mentioned food, clothing, culture. We dealt with comic books this year and comic characters, sounds and movies. I think there's, we even had stand-up bug jokes. The idea is that you'd be hard-pressed to find some aspect of human culture that has not been influenced by arthropods and bugs in general. You can always find insects in literature, movies, television. So again, it brings people in that might not have an interest in insects, and hopefully maybe someone that's interested in fashion will say, hey, I didn't know where these dyes came from, and there are other dyes that come from insects. Carmine, for example.
Yes,
there's silk that comes from spiders. There's other insect stories to tell. Beetle elytra that are used as jeweling on dresses. So we'll probably have next year. I think we'll always have some online content, and maybe next year we can start brainstorming about other fashion archive contributions that would be perfect for Bugfest, because I know there's more stories out there we can tell.
Oh yes, there are, because fashion looks to nature for inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we want to thank you, Marcy, for coming on the daily wrap up today. We learned a lot and enjoyed your extra expertise and time. So thank you for joining us again for this one.
Thank you. Appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right, don't leave, everyone. We've got a little bit more to go. Let me grab Marcy out of here. Okay. We actually have, and I'm going to throw it over to James in a second, but we have another guest that's joining us to talk about the event, and someone that I believe that you saw, actually, I know that you saw, was a part of the event earlier. The one, the only, Dr. Ruth. Hello, Dr. Ruth. No, this is Mary Beth Prondzinski, and she is our very own Dr. Ruth and spider expert. But we'll throw it over to James because we had some other questions, I think, about some of the event. Right, James?
Yeah, I think so. We can go back to talking about the chocolate chirp cookies. We'll start with that one. And I guess, because the whole video revolves around the idea of what is it, the entomophagy.
Entomophagy, yeah.
It's easier to say after you've heard it, but like reading that loud, you're like, wait, how? What? Dr. Friel, can you talk a little bit about that?
Which is eating entomope cakes, but that's something completely different.
That is something that I have, and apparently insects too. Now I know. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about it, Dr. Friel?
Yeah, so I mean, the Abbotts are big proponents of it. Kendra, particularly, we've had, and actually, in past Bugfest, we actually had a little demonstration. They often produce. We've had different flavored crickets and cookies and other insect treats at some of our public events at the museum. So the idea is, again, touching on something that, well, in our culture, seems quite strange. Most Americans are not into eating insects, but if you look at cultures across the world, insects are a really important source of protein. In many cultures, they're traditional foods. It's just kind of us that have think they're icky. And I like to, remind people that we're not eating insects at whole. We do eat whole crustaceans, shrimps, crabs, things like that. And if you have no problem eating those, I mean, effectively, you're eating an insect or a bug is no different. The same. They have more in common than you think. So I think we need to get over that. And last year we had like some tortilla chips we were selling. Actually, we had samples that were made with crickets.
I was going to say,
some people have a visual thing. It's just like they can't trying to vision eating an insect, but if you know what's in there and can't see it, it's kind of a baby step. So I think that's what Kendra was showing in the 2 batches of cookies she made. One she used whole crickets, and the other one she used cricket powder. So the first batch, if you looked at some of the chocolate chips weren't chocolate chips, they were actually pieces of cricket. And the second batch, you couldn't even see the crickets.
Yeah, it was just
unrecognizable, but nonetheless, they were included in that. So that might be an easier step. But the idea is just think about it. If you ever offered insects, if you ever traveled to other places in the world, you may see insects for sale. And again, I would indulge people. Try it. It may not be your cup of tea, but at least try it. You may be surprised. Some of these things are not. They're going to taste different. And obviously, I've eaten crickets, I've eaten grubs, I've eaten all kinds of things in my travels, but it's an acquired taste, and it's not for everybody. But again, I don't turn my nose up at people that do, because for some people that's a comfort food. And right now, unfortunately, insects are kind of expensive. That's the one thing I learned when I was actually going to provide crickets last year, and buying some of the crickets, unless you raise them themselves, is actually more expensive than buying chicken or beef. So
oh wow,
while it's good protein, it hasn't scaled yet to the level where it's kind of like solar energy. It's not quite where it needs to compete with other sources of energy.
Well, I want to say that at this time of year, especially with the cicadas coming out, they're really good if you fry them up with garlic and butter.
I got one for you, Mary Beth.
It's not fresh enough.
Have you had them, Mary Beth, with garlic and butter?
Yeah, they're good.
Oh. Right. What do they taste like? Chicken?
Grass.
Like grass?
Yeah. But you add garlic and butter, and it's escargot or something.
Garlic butter and fry it. You can eat anything.
Yeah.
Mary Beth, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but when you ate them, did you have like wings and everything? Legs, wings, everything? Just pop it?
I'm trying to remember. I don't think you eat the heads or the wings. And I think they pulled those off, and then they just fried up the bodies. But they have to be recently hatched. They can't be old.
Where did you have them?
Soft shell cicadas.
In New York.
In New York?
Yeah.
Okay. That's really cool.
That's not a place I would have thought to find.
Well, at the American Museum, there was a guy there who loved to fry.
Oh, okay.
So
it's all about who you know.
Yeah. I'll try anything once.
Well, you were saying, Dr. Friel, about different types of insects to eat. I know that, I think in the Southwest area, they usually put scorpions in lollipops and stuff.
Yeah, you can buy those. You can buy those on Amazon. Yeah. They have those. They're really expensive for what they are. Again, I looked into those. They were even wholesale. They were kind of very expensive to buy.
Because lots of cultures kind of like a. Go ahead.
Grasshoppers are probably the most common thing in Mexico and Central America. Grasshopper tacos, chapulines, as they call them, are really common when they're abundant. A lot of these things are kind of ants at certain times of year. When ants reproduce, they have wings and they fly, and you get these big masses of them, and people collect them. And again, it's kind of like a locally available resource. It's kind of like your favorite vegetable that's in season at the farmer's market. So people seize upon that. And it's just a really traditional kind of summer food in many places. Someone asked when I did the spider thing about fried spider, and I believe in Cambodia, it's like a national delicacy. So different cultures around the world have different. And I've eaten palm grubs in Africa. That's really common to collect those. They're really fatty. So they, when you fry them, they're kind of almost buttery. And I think Kendra talked about in her video eating in Ecuador, so coconut grubs, very similar to living in these coconuts and they basically tasted like coconut. So you can imagine, I think that might be a really delicious insect to eat. I like coconut. I'd be keen to try some of those.
Definitely.
James, have you ever eaten whole insects?
No, not
that you know of.
I was gonna. My thought here. I just recently found out that there are tiny, very you can still see them, but they're very small little insects. I think they're just fruit flies, or the fruit fly larvae that are hiding out on strawberries. And I had bought a thing of strawberries and put them into warm salt water, and sure enough, these bugs started crawling out, not knowing that that's what it was. I don't. Do you know what kind of insects those were?
There's probably were. They can well be. There are Drosophila locally here, and that's what they do. They're always looking for fruit. If you know, I've had Drosophila outbreaks. If I don't, if I let fruit get too ripe and they get on there, I mean, they reproduce really quickly. So that's that's really common. You know, there's the kind of cartoon of eating a worm. You know, an apple. You bite into an apple or something, and there's a worm in it. So if you eat a lot of fruit, you're probably eating some fly larvae as well. There may be some things on the surface. I mean, there's microscopic mites. So again, like I said, most of us. I said earlier during Marcy is if you eat any kind of processed food, insects live on those plants, and when they're harvested and the grains are ground up and things are canned, little bits of insects are included in there. So you're getting a little bit of protein, and most people don't even notice it. So, I tell people, there isn't a person alive eating insects. They just don't know it. And some of us, if you get comfortable, you get to the point where you can eat whole insects. There's some people that raise. I raise mealworms, and I thought about, I should fry some of them up from time to time, maybe get my kid to eat some insects, so he doesn't develop a fear of them, because I think, the one thing I try to, hopefully at every bug fest, I hope we can convince some people to give bugs a second chance. You can still be grossed out by them, but at least be curious, and maybe, take baby steps, maybe learn some more about them. But I was encouraged last year when we had insect food to eat, at least, a lot of people were adventurous and we were willing to try it. So that's the first step. And the whole idea is, insects are, once they scale, they're much more efficient ways to produce protein. Compared to most other domesticated animals that we consume. So it just hasn't scaled yet. It's one of those industries which is still early in its infancy. So as these get bigger and bigger, more efficient, most of the insect production, or at least commercially, is for feeding animals, crickets for lizards and people's pets. That's the big industry, and you could probably eat those. I mean, they're not raised specifically for human consumption, but I'm sure if you prepared them properly, they wouldn't be an issue. The things Kendra's marketing, there are companies that actually market them. They actually have them inspected by USDA inspectors specifically for human consumption. So that might be the place to start. Or you can raise your own. That's really easy to raise your own insects. Like I said, I raise mealworms. Again, I just have them so if I occasionally have a lizard I want to feed or something, but I could eat those same ones because I feed them good stuff, oat bran, organic stuff, scraps. So I know exactly what they're eating. They're not eating garbage, so I have no worries about pesticides or anything in them. So that's another way you could easily start with your own mealworm culture and kind of grow your own.
Well, if you're into figs, you're also eating wasps.
Yeah, that's another good example. Figs are pollinated by wasps that live inside them. That's a good example, Mary Beth. Yeah, forgot about that.
Well, it's that time of year.
And those wasps are delicious.
Figs are fig Newtons. That's the other thing. I'm sure
That's a way to look at it.
Yeah. I say those insects are what make our candy bars and cookies so extra crunchy.
I was impressed by Marcy. I couldn't believe the amount of candy she had. Part of me is I think maybe next year we should do an exhibit of just the things in grocery stores that might have insect. We can buy some fruit and do what James said, do an experiment saying, hey, these are the insects that are on your fruit. I mean, it may gross out some people. I think it's kind of fascinating, we could probably, because it is kind of everywhere, and maybe even get some crustaceans and,
and I think even just like letting people know that that's where they are and getting people used to that, it becomes less of a taboo thing. Yeah. Because then you're like, okay, well, now I know that when I eat strawberry, there's potentially going to be bugs on it, but it doesn't ever hurt me.
And some people never eat strawberries again.
And some people might never eat strawberries again, or they'll just wash it off with salt water because that works.
Or they'll follow James's advice.
Yeah. So let's move to the next one that we were talking about, the video that we saw, which was the composting critters. Does anyone here have their own compost heap that they're working on? Maybe not to the scale that the Arboretum has, but maybe a personal one.
No, I get into that.
Yeah, I don't, but
people. Go ahead.
I would say I'd like to start one. I just haven't yet, but it's on my agenda at some point in my life. I would love to have a compost heap.
I have in the past. I don't have a big garden now. When I had a bigger garden living up in New York, I did compost because I had like leaf clippings as well. I'm amazed here. In my neighborhood at least, so many people put their leaf clippings out for Tuscaloosa trash collectors to pick up, and I'm thinking, that's good compost if you mix that up with other things. So that's probably more so than food scraps. People generate so much plant material from their yard care that can be mulched. So that's kind of my advice. If you want to start mulching, in addition to your food scraps, if you don't have a mulching mower, use the grass clippings you have or the leaf. When you get leaves, mulch those up. All that stuff. Mix it up here and follow that video, the steps in that, and you can make some really good mulch for your garden.
Yeah, I know that I have a small little, I guess, potted plant that I've been throwing food scraps into, and it wasn't doing anything for a while, and I don't know I need to like mix it up or anything like that. Yeah. But we had thrown away some pepper seeds, not thinking that they were going to grow, and then the next day we kind of looked out there, and sure enough, there's a bunch of new pepper plants hanging out. And we're like, where did these come from? They weren't there yesterday. So it's something must be working pretty well.
It's amazing, I grow a lot of mint now. So my wife planted a few years ago mint. So we've got peppermint, spearmint, something else. And now I'm getting these moths now. There's these mint-loving moths, and I noticed I have a bumper crop of them this year because I've got so much mint. So it's kind of a side. We have more mint than we could ever use.
I love rosemary. Mint. Doesn't really grow well here because it gets so hot.
Yeah, for whatever reason, ours grows incredibly well. It comes back every year stronger. So we've been, planting a few things, and it's not really a garden. It started off with just a single plant, but it really has survived, and every year it doubles in size.
Oh wow!
But
I didn't think a lot of
it. It's flowering now, so many things are. I go out there at night. During the day, it's covered with bees and other insects that are pollinating them, and at night there are all these spiders that are on it, catching all the moths that are on it as well. So it's a whole community.
Yeah, little ecosystem going on here. I was always under the impression that the mint plants kind of repelled different types of insects. So it's surprising to see that, or to hear that a lot of them are actually drawn to it for one reason or another. Do you know why that might be?
I don't know why that. Mints in general, they have that oils. They have aromatic oil, so that's what you typically perceive. Oregano too. And oregano is another thing we've got a ton of. And again, I guess they probably evolved originally they might have been to deter, some particular insect. But these things have been moved around. Some of them are non-native, so it may not work. It may prevent them from eating it, but definitely not from pollinating them.
Interesting.
I will say too, James, that I love that you said that you threw your plant food scraps, because now all I can think is feed me, Seymour. Is the best. Also, Pam Sloan wants to make sure that we add eggshells to our compost.
Coffee's good. Coffee's good too.
Coffee grounds, yeah. People use newspaper. You can actually shred up paper.
Yeah. And that's what I think I liked so much about the Arboretum's compost pile, is that it was food scraps, but she was turning it. Now the one that she showed me was, like she said, it was about a year old, so it's pretty complete. But they get fresher stuff. I think it's a weekly delivery. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, there were pieces of paper and a couple other things that made their way in there. And she was just talking about how, we didn't get that in the video, but she was talking about how that all, broke down and just got to be a part of that big compost pile too, which was really kind of neat.
Where is that pile? Is that near the children's garden there? Or?
Yeah, that one was near the children's garden. Their big leaf pile that she showed us too, that one is kind of back behind the children's garden a little bit. There's a couple of buildings they have back there, and like a solar kiln and stuff like that. And it's the big leaf pile is there, but the compost pile she was talking in front of for most of it is right behind the children's garden.
Is that
in the community garden? Yeah, and that was just one. There were like 3 of them. We saw there was like mountains and mountains of compost.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it's such a neat program, like the Arboretum is something that's off campus and someplace that I think people, like to visit, to hike and bring, kids and pets and everything too. But it's really kind of great we have to also remember that the Arboretum is a museum in and of itself. It's a tree museum is how Monica always refers to it. They have so many species, like the grounds themselves are meant as a preservation space. So they're preserving those tree species that they have. They also have those greenhouses that but it's also, they have all those plants in, but it's also a way, it's got these compost programs that are heavily involved on campus, just a couple miles down the road. And it's used to benefit our community, which is another thing that I love so much. Not only do people from the community come and tend to the garden, but the produce from that garden goes to our local food banks. I mean, how can you not love that program? It's perfect. Yeah, it's so great. So I just, anytime that we can, rep the Arboretum, I love to, because they are a great partner and just a fascinating place.
And it's right down the road here.
Exactly. No, I know it's not, we were talking to Monica about it. It's not open to the public just yet, but she said to keep an eye out on the website for announcements about when it'll be open to the public again.
Okay.
Very cool. All right. Do we want to take a look at the art contests by chance?
Yes.
So yeah, all right. So today is a very special day because we're going to announce the winners for our first ever Bama Bug Fest art contest. Artists in 4 different categories submitted their insect-themed art to our contest submission form through our contest submission form, and we reviewed them and then we put them onto our respected Facebook pages for voting to occur by you, the viewers, and the public who got to see them. And the voting ended last night at 5:00, and then we tallied up the votes. And we've picked a winner for each category. And let me go ahead and actually pull up my screen because I have the PowerPoint here.
And while he's doing that, I want to show this real quick that Pam Sloan, who is works with Discovering Alabama, but is also part of the Master Gardeners group. The Master Gardeners volunteer to work in the garden and at the Arboretum. So she wanted to shout out to the Master Gardeners.
Thanks, Pam.
They also work with Moundville, I think, at the Moundville Three Sisters Garden as well. They're everywhere. Another great group.
Right.
They're like bugs. They're everywhere.
Everywhere.
All right, it's going to look a little crazy because I got a lot of windows open here, but I'm going to go ahead and share it real quick. And then I'm going to open up. Can you all see this?
Yes.
All right, so let's start a little PowerPoint slideshow. Here we go. All right, and so it was split up into 4 different categories. One being like the K through 3, or K through 3rd grade, 4 through 8th, 9th through 12th, and then we had an adult category at the end. And so our grade K through 3 was Max, and his their drawing that they submitted were these. It was titled Beetles, and it was the rainbow stag beetles, the man-faced stink beetle, and a stag beetle, and he drew them with crayon and on construction paper. So like this is the one that everyone picked for this category. It looks really good. I like it. I like the colors
Max.
that we picked out. Yeah, it's really good.
Go, Max.
Yeah, that was really great. Yeah, it was a tough competition too.
It was, yeah. There was lots of good submissions. The next is our 4th through 8th, and that's Maggie. And she drew this butterfly titled Butterfly. And she said that she wanted to, I'll quote, "I wanted my butterfly to look both realistic and abstract at the same time." So sort of like a stained glass window. The green background represents grass, sort of like if it was landing on the grass gently. And then she drew it with colored pencils on cream-colored cardstock paper, which is very beautiful.
Wow.
Congratulations, Maggie.
I have an interesting comment on this one.
Go ahead.
It does show one of the features of most butterflies, but some moths having those long antennae like that, and some not being bushy. So, but the other thing which is kind of cool that she wasn't trying to capture here, but there are cases in butterflies and some other insects in which you get individuals that one side of them, like the left side is male and the right side is female. And there are naturally occurring butterflies. I've seen pictures of these where the wings are different. Well, you'll get the female color morph or colored style on the one side, and the other side of the body will have the man. And in species where the males and females are different colors, the left and right sides will be different colors, just like this picture. So, though it may look unusual having a butterfly that has asymmetrical coloring, there are individuals, gyandromorphs they call them, that do occur at a small percentage of the population in some butterflies. So I think that's kind of an interesting side note. When I looked at that, that's what was going through my mind, at least.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm sure she's loving to hear about that too. Well, maybe she didn't know that that's what she was doing.
I don't think she did, but again, that's what I love about art, is because art is, the artist may have one thing in mind when they produce it, but often when you look at art, you have your own interpretation of it. So
yeah,
I have a slightly different interpretation, but it's still directly related to this being a butterfly. And, so I love that aspect of the artwork is, looking at these things, how when I get something out of it as well. I can critique it as the anatomy and things like that, but it also reminds me of things that, I should have mentioned that, but I didn't earlier in my talk. Yeah. And that was something that just literally popped in my head right now, looking at a butterfly that had different patterns on both sides of its body, because there's a biological reality that can be matched to.
Well, we'll just have to save that for next year's Mammoth Bug Fest, John.
Very cool.
Gyandromorphs.
Yeah.
All right. So, and we'll go ahead and move on to the, the 9th through 12th grade. And that was Lily, and she painted these two painted lady butterflies. And she says that these are painted lady butterflies. It is just spring, and these butterflies are making friends after a long time in their cocoons. She used color pencils and drawing pens to create this image. This is very beautiful too. I like the added. They almost look like petals, like flower petals floating around them, which is really nice.
Yeah, good job, Lily. Congratulations on winning.
Yeah, it's very nice. I like the color.
Yeah, I do too.
Yes, me too.
I like the blue. And then our last section, which was the adults, is none other than our Dr. Sharony Green, who drew this dragonfly. And she says that it's in rest mode after eating the mosquitoes so that she could continue playing horseshoes. She used a pencil and watercolor, which is really cool. So,
I was going to say, I follow Sharony on Instagram, and she's playing a lot of horseshoe crafts. She's doing a lot of baking. It's kind of interesting. She's a professor at UA, and again, it reminds you that professors are normal people. All the things that we're doing at home, professors are doing with their families. But I'm glad she took out the time to draw this dragonfly.
Yeah.
This is one she also shared on social media. So I'm going to send her some stickers because she posted this.
Yeah.
And I saw it on her Instagram. So she did exactly what we asked. She submitted it.
Yes.
It is. I think I remember seeing it or peeking on it under the hashtag that we've been using.
You mean this hashtag?
I do believe so. Let me get out of this screen.
Hashtag Bama Bug Fest.
Yeah. All right. So, yep, those are the winners of the art contest.
And tell them what they're going to get. No, just
yeah. So each of the art, the art submissions are going to be featured into the UA Museum's Chronicle, which is it a bi-yearly, or have we?
I think it comes out 2 or 3 times
annually?
a year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 2 or 3 times a year, and all 4 of those winners will be featured in the next. I almost said episode, not episode.
Issue.
Next episode.
Thank you, issue. Thank you, Mary Beth. Issue. Next issue. The next episode of Coachella Insects. I don't know. Anyway, but the next issue. So, James, I kind of wanted to flip the script on you a little bit and talk to you real quick, because James not only has been organizing and orchestrating the art contest from behind the scenes, but he also was the one who curated and put together our Details Unseen, the virtual exhibit for Bama Bug Fest, which everyone, if you haven't had a chance to see yet, it is also linked at bamabugfest.org. Details Unseen was an exhibit that was made up of photography images done by students in Kendra Abbott's class, and I believe in the Blunt School,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Blunt Initiative. So, and Kendra, taught her students how to use photography to help take macro images of insects. Unfortunately, the class was cut short because of the pandemic, but we were able to get some of those images to be put together. The idea was, I think, and James, you can talk about this more, I think, but the original idea was to have it physical in person, right? At the museum? At the Transportation Museum?
Yeah. So I guess in years past, we'd had kind of like a photography exhibit that went along with at first it was Moth Fest and then Bama Bug Fest last year. And those were, I guess, professional photographs from Dr. John Abbott and Kendra Abbott, who have their own photography company. Is it a company? Yeah, business. Yeah. So that's right. Yeah, Abbott Nature Photography, and we used some of their photographs. And I think when we were looking at this year's exhibit, we were looking at a different type of photograph exhibit, and Kendra was actually teaching the Blunt scholar, I guess I'm always blanking on the name of it. The Blunt
Initiative, isn't it? Blunt Initiative or
Blunt Scholars Nature.
Scholars, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scholars Nature Photography course. But she was teaching that this year, and I think part of their what they did was they were doing macro and micro photography. So they were taking pictures.
So they were doing macro photography, but using multiple images. So there's a technique in which you can take, when you take a picture, typically it's focused on a single focal plane. But when you're really close, your depth of field is really shallow. So typically macro photography, you'll get something that's really focused, but anything that's slightly in or out of that plane of focus is not in focus. But there's a method if you take multiple pictures that are slightly in different planes of focus. So if you move the camera just a millimeter, take another picture, you can, in software, you can stack those images and basically increase the depth of field by using hundreds of images rather than a single image. So they were doing macro photography of these insect specimens, stacking them, and then using software to basically produce these composite images that had incredible depth of field.
Yeah, like it made it look like they were really, I guess, well, they were really close to the insects, but it made it look very, very realistic. So I think they took anywhere between 50 and 100 photographs all at once, not like all at once, but like over the course of the class period, and then in some, like you said, the stacking method was that they layered it on top of each other so that it could create the depth of field or look that they wanted to achieve for each photograph. I think a part of this on its own would be challenging enough, but paired with the idea that they only had I think they only had 1 day to finish this before they were all sent away.
Oh man.
They only had 1 day to take all the photographs and then figure out how to do it before they were sent away for spring break, and then because of the COVID, never to return. Not for bad things.
They're
but
okay.
Yes, they're all safe, but they weren't allowed to come back to class, and they had to more or less figure it out on their own. And then these are the submitted final projects that they were able to send in for the class, and these are what they were graded on.
Can you see my scrolling?
I can, yeah.
Okay.
And they picked out a handful of interesting insects and bugs for various different reasons too, and it's all kind of outlined into the exhibit here. I like the mantis kind of jumping out at you with his arms up.
I like his cute little face. He looks like a Muppet.
Yeah.
Look at that Muppety face. So when you were putting this exhibit together, had you done a virtual exhibit before? I know you've worked on a lot of exhibits at the museum, but have you done a virtual one before?
I had not.
You would
so
never have known it. This is great.
Right. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's something that, it's something that I had taken an inspiration from Dr. Hillary Green's. She put together a Spark presentation, which is what this program is being run on. It's a Adobe Spark, and she had put together a presentation, kind of like a walking tour of the grounds tour here at UA. And it was both a guided tour, and then if you wanted a self-guided tour, it was the Spark, Adobe Spark. And I got to look at that. And I kind of like saying I more or less mirrored it off of hers. Not knowing it was going to work or it wasn't going to work, but I think it turned out pretty well. There was a couple, I wouldn't say issues with it, but there are some limitations, and those required some creative, creative ways of getting around. So like some of these, the butterfly wings and moth wings, if they were put into a smaller picture, like some of the others, like on the sides, it wouldn't give you enough detail. So I was like, well, I don't know how best to highlight that image, because it was really detailed image because of the stacking process. But it was just very big, so you couldn't get that depth from it if it was condensed into a smaller like window pane, right? Whereas some of the other ones were very focused on either the head or the face of the insects, which allowed you to see a smaller bit of the detail, but more of it. So it was interesting to figure out different ways to do it, and I played around with it for a while before kind of settling on how it is here. And I hope I did the students justice by using their final grade photographs well. I hope they all saw it, and I wish the class hadn't ended so quickly, so that I could get some of their feedback and see what they think about it, see what they would maybe want different from it, or any of the above.
Well, if any of them are watching right now, just let us know, because we would love to hear from you. It was great, James. It turned out really well, and it's fascinating. Those images are crystal clear and beautiful. So that is the details unseen. Details unseen. Oh, I'm missing some of the words.
Yeah, details unseen, the hidden secrets of bugs.
Yes, thank you. And that is available and linked at the BamaBugFest.org, and was put together by that guy. Nope, that guy right there. I also, just in that vein, and I'm sorry to keep jumping in, James, but I wanted to, since this is the very last thing for Bama Bug Fest, we had an event committee of 9 people that worked very hard to get this event up and going, and we've mentioned their names the names of their organizations a couple of times, and by a couple of times I mean every time we've done an event, but anytime we've done anything live. But I wanted to call out special attention to the committee members, because everyone worked really hard on this event. So I put a little slide together. Can I show all of you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me show you. Can everyone see everyone? So this is our Bama Bug Fest event committee. You probably have seen their faces on the events throughout this last 3 weeks. But everyone here worked hard to put together content. Some of us learned video editing very quickly and how to film things very quickly. This was a really great team, because everyone has different skill sets and different strengths, and we were able to really pull from everyone's strengths to make an event that I personally am proud of and proud to have my name be a part of. And so I just wanted to make sure that these guys got their recognition, because they have been an incredible team. So thank you, if you are watching, Bama Bug Fest Committee, for everything that you did to put this event together. We are grateful and appreciative of it, and look forward to another Bama Bug Fest next year. So thanks to everyone here. I think that was it. I just want to make sure everyone got to see those amazing people. Okay.
So is this a wrap?
I think this might be a wrap. What do you think, James?
I think so, yeah. We'll go ahead and thank everyone again for joining us for this entire month of Bama Bug Fest on the web. We've had a lot of fun sharing this bug-themed content with you. There goes a cat. And it was a lot of fun connecting through all of the different mediums that we have available, given the situation that we have going on, and being able to interact with your comments and getting to learn from experts along the way. If you weren't able to join for any of these live presentations, they'll all be archived on our social media sites, and I think they'll be on the Bama Bug Fest website, because that's not going away, right, John?
Nope.
It's not going away. No way.
It's not going away.
The schedule,
So,
we may change the format of it, but there'll be links to all the recorded content.
Yeah. And so don't forget to like and subscribe to all of our partners' social media sites and YouTube channels. And as always, we want to thank the UA museums, the Mildred Westervelt Warner Transportation Museum, the Alabama Museum of Natural History, the Department of Research and Collections at UA, UA's Rogers Library, and the Tuscaloosa Public Library for all of your work in organizing this event, which is all the people that we just saw. And then, please continue to support all of our organizing partners' social media sites, YouTube channels, and make sure to follow our contributing guests' information as well. So that would include the fashion archives at UA. I know there's a bunch more that I don't know off the top of my head,
Yes.
but they'll all be on the resource guide as well. And then we will be able to continue to visit. You will be able to continue to visit the BamaBugFest.org for all of the information and links that we have mentioned throughout the month. So other than that, I think that's a wrap for Bama Bug Fest 2020 on the web.
On the web.
Great job, you guys.
Went by
Thanks,
so
everyone.
fast.
It did. I thought July was gonna drag out like the rest of the month, but it went by like that.
Yeah. When you post 4 times a day, 3 days a week, I think it tends to go by pretty quickly. But yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you again to all of our contributing partners that are outside of those organizations that we said. Thank you to everyone who lent their time and expertise for the Bama Bug Fest. Our comedians, our experts, our fashion experts, our food experts, our everyone expert. Thank you for everyone. We couldn't have done it without those partnerships. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.